Call Salesforce right now, and there's roughly a coin flip on who picks up. Half the time, a person. Half the time, software wearing a headset. In September 2025, CEO Marc Benioff put that number on the record. 50% are with agents, 50% are with humans. Then he added the number behind it, his own support division, 9,000 people, cut down to about 5,000. "I need less heads," he said. Not a leak, not a rumor, his words in his voice on a podcast. At the very same time, Salesforce's own marketing pages were telling every other company on Earth that its AI, Agentforce, would only augment their workforce, never replace it. One pitch for customers, a different set of numbers for the people who already worked there. This is the story of the company selling the AI dream to the rest of the world, while the real numbers about what it did to its own people sat in plain sight the whole time, in an earnings call, on a podcast, in a filing nobody outside Wall Street reads. To understand how we got here, go back to 1999. Marc Benioff is 34 years old, a rising executive at Oracle, and he rents a small apartment in San Francisco to start something new. The company is called Salesforce. The idea: business software shouldn't live on a disk you install. It should live on the internet, rented like a utility, updated for everyone at once. The logo is a red circle with a slash through the word software. No software. It's a dare, aimed at every company still selling shrink-wrapped CDs. From the very first year, Benioff builds in something unusual, the 1-1-1 model. 1% of the company's equity, 1% of its product, 1% of employee time given to charity permanently, written into the foundation before there's any profit to speak of. He calls the culture Ohana, Hawaiian for family, extended, no one left behind. It becomes the story Salesforce tells about itself for 2 decades. Succeed by putting people first. By 2004, the bet pays off. Salesforce goes public. The no software idea, once a novelty, becomes the industry standard. Cloud computing, subscription software, delivered over a browser to millions of desks. The company grows into the world's biggest maker of customer relationship software, its annual conference, Dreamforce, swelling into a takeover of downtown San Francisco, and its headquarters eventually rising as the tallest tower on the city's skyline. Benioff becomes one of the most quoted executives in tech, a billionaire who talks about stakeholder capitalism as often as he talks about quarterly earnings. For most of its history, Salesforce is the company that proved you could be profitable and generous at the same time. It's a good story. It's also, as it turns out, the easy part. But that generosity had a limit, and 2023 is when the world found it. For years, Salesforce had grown by acquisition, spending big to bolt one company onto another. $27 billion for Slack in 2021 alone, on top of Tableau and MuleSoft before it. Then, in late 2022, activist investors start circling. Elliott Management takes a stake, so does Starboard Value. Their message is blunt. Margins are too thin, headcount is too fat. Prove this company can make money as efficiently as it makes promises. On January 4th, 2023, Benioff announces roughly 7,000 layoffs, about 10% of the entire workforce. He later admits, in his own words, that handling it the way he did was a bad idea. It's the first real crack in the Ohana story. Family, it turns out, still gets restructured when Wall Street asks. The layoffs work in the way activist investors wanted them to. Salesforce's stock recovers through 2023 and 2024. Margins improve. And somewhere in the conversations that follow, a new idea takes hold. Not just cutting headcount once, but building a permanent way to need less of it. If 7,000 people could be cut for efficiency, what happens when the efficiency itself learns to talk to customers, write code, and close deals? Salesforce already has the platform millions of businesses run on. Now, it needs something to put inside it. One reasonable decision at a time. That's how it starts. That something arrives in September 2024 at Salesforce's Dreamforce conference under the name Agentforce. Benioff calls it digital labor, AI agents that don't just answer questions, but reason, decide, and act on their own. plugged directly into the same system that already runs sales, service, and marketing for hundreds of thousands of businesses. The pitch is carefully worded, and it's worth reading closely because this is the fine print. Salesforce's own messaging around the launch is consistent and deliberate. Agents are framed as partners, not substitutes, releasing employees from routine work rather than replacing them, building what the company calls a collaborative workforce of humans and digital agents working side by side. The underlying idea, repeated across the company's materials, is simple. Skilled use of this new digital labor is meant to be a competitive edge for employees, not a replacement for them. It is, on its face, a reasonable message. No one wants to sell a product by promising to fire the buyer's employees. And there's a real product underneath the language. Agents that can resolve a support ticket, qualify a sales lead, or launch a marketing campaign inside guardrails a human sets. But notice what's happening underneath the launch slide. The same season Agentforce goes to market, it isn't just a pitch to other companies. It's already live, inside Salesforce's own support organization, absorbing the exact kind of ticket a human used to close. The company testing whether augmentation holds up in practice is testing it on its own payroll, and it hasn't said the number out loud yet. Not until a podcast, a year later, forces it into the open. And commercially, it works. By the end of fiscal 2025, Salesforce's Data Cloud and AI business is already generating roughly $900 million in annual recurring revenue. A year later, in the third quarter of fiscal 2026, that number is nearly $1.4 billion across more than 18,500 deals. By the fourth quarter, Agentforce and Data 360 combined reached $2.9 billion in annual recurring revenue. Agentforce alone accounts for $800 million of it, up 169% year over year, with 29,000 deals closed since launch. The quarter after that, Agentforce revenue alone hits $1.2 billion, up 205%. In June 2025, Benioff tells Bloomberg that AI is now doing 30 to 50% of the work at Salesforce, running at roughly 93% accuracy. It's the kind of number that should send a stock soaring. It doesn't. Despite the fastest growing product line in company history, Salesforce's stock falls somewhere between 50 and 57% from its 2025 peak. Bank of America reinstates coverage with a sell rating and a $160 price target. Deutsche Bank, on the same numbers, keeps a buy rating and a target more than 50% higher. Two banks, looking at the same Agentforce results, can't agree if the growth is real or already priced in. Investors, it turns out, don't need Benioff to convince them digital labor works. They need proof it's worth what Wall Street paid for it. And on that question, even the believers are still arguing. Which brings us to the moment that makes the paradox impossible to ignore. September 2nd, 2025. Marc Benioff sits down with entrepreneur Logan Bartlett for a podcast interview. Not a press conference, not a scripted keynote, just a conversation. And in it, he says the quiet part with no hedging at all. If we were having this conversation a year ago, he tells Bartlett, and you were calling Salesforce, there would be 9,000 people that you would be interacting with globally on our service cloud. Today, he says, that's different. 50% are with agents, 50% are with humans. Then the number behind the number. I was able to rebalance my headcount on my support. I've reduced it from 9,000 heads to about 5,000 because I need less heads. Bartlett asks the obvious question. Does that feel dystopian? Benioff brushes the idea aside, no hesitation, insisting the shift isn't something to fear. Sit with that for a second because it's doing real work. Not, we redeployed people. Not, we're retraining staff for higher value roles. Though Salesforce says it also redeployed hundreds of employees into professional services, sales, and customer success. The phrase chosen on the record is, I need less heads. 4,000 fewer of them in a single division, described with the plainness of a hardware order. By his own account, those AI agents had handled more than 1 million customer conversations in the 6 to 9 months before that interview. Support costs were down roughly 17% since the start of the year. On paper, it's a case study. The exact kind of result Agentforce is supposed to produce for every other company buying it. But somewhere, a person who used to be one of those 9,000 heard this interview, or read about it afterward. Their job wasn't automated because a machine did it better in some abstract sense. It was automated because a machine now does it for less. And the same week those words go out to the world, Salesforce's own marketing pages are still telling the next customer in line. Agents are partners, not replacements, augmentation, not automation. Benioff isn't lying exactly. He seems to believe both things. That's what makes it unsettling, not hypocrisy, but a genuine, comfortable belief that a nearly 45% cut to one's own support division and a promise of augmentation to everyone else can both be true at the same time. Zoom out, and Salesforce's experiment stops looking like an isolated story and starts looking like a preview. In August 2025, researchers at MIT's NANDA initiative publish a report called The Gen AI Divide. Its headline finding, drawn from dozens of enterprise interviews, roughly 95% of generative AI pilot programs inside companies fail to show any measurable financial return within 6 months. Only about 5% break through to real, measurable impact. And it's concentrated less in flashy customer-facing tools like Agentforce and more in unglamorous back-office automation. Critics note the study leaned on around 50 interviews rather than a sweeping census, but no rival study has produced a rosier number. And the 95% figure spreads through boardrooms anyway, because it matches what a lot of executives are already quietly seeing. A little earlier, in June 2025, the research firm Gartner makes its own prediction, based on a survey of more than 3,400 organizations already investing in the technology. Over 40% of agentic AI projects, the exact category Agentforce belongs to, will be canceled by the end of 2027. Not because the models don't work, Gartner says, but because of escalating costs, unclear business value, and weak risk controls. And Challenger, Gray & Christmas, the outplacement firm that tracks American layoffs, counts more than 17,000 U.S. job cuts explicitly attributed to AI in 2025 alone, out of nearly 55,000 tied to AI more broadly. Salesforce's 4,000 support roles are among the named cuts in that data. Here's the acidic part, the one number that doesn't resolve. Salesforce isn't just one data point in this story. It's also the company selling the product at the center of it. While Gartner tells the market that 4 in 10 agentic AI projects will be scrapped, Salesforce spends $3.6 billion acquiring another AI agent company, Fin, to expand Agentforce further. It is simultaneously the company whose own layoffs already happened, permanent, done, 4,000 people not coming back, and the company still selling the tool to everyone else. At the exact moment, independent researchers say the odds favor failure. The 4,000 people already paid the cost of finding out. Everyone else is still finding out whether it was worth it. It's tempting to make this a villain story, a CEO who talks about family and Ohana while quietly automating people out of a job. But that's too easy, and it isn't really what happened. Every decision along the way was defensible on its own terms. Cut costs when activists demanded. Build the AI platform everyone else is racing to build. Sell it the way any company sells a product, emphasizing what it adds, not what it removes. Report the results honestly, even the uncomfortable ones, on a podcast, without a script. None of that requires a villain. It only requires 9,000 reasonable decisions, made one at a time, by people who were never required to see where they added up, and a number that sat in plain sight the entire time. The uncomfortable pattern isn't that Salesforce lied. It's that the tool being tested on someone else's job today is, right now, being sold for tomorrow's. And by Gartner's own numbers, the odds aren't even good that it works. Every executive watching Benioff's interview heard the same thing the 4,000 did. That the math runs one direction, that augment and replace were never really in conflict, only in sequence. First you augment. Then, once the software is good enough, you stop needing the person it was supposed to be augmenting. Call Salesforce again. Somewhere on the other end, a person or a piece of software will pick up, and you probably won't be able to tell which. That used to be Benioff's example. It's quietly becoming everyone's.